Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Silke Glaab about 5 core elements of human potential and how to leverage them as we lead others. Silke Glaab, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thank you very much, John, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be on your podcast.
It is a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. It is morning in Utah for me. It is evening for you in Dubai. You're joining me from halfway across the world. It's really a pleasure to be with you. Today, we're going to be focusing on 5 core elements of human potential. Now, of course, this has relevance in all aspects of life, in our personal life, our family life, our community life, but it also has direct implications for the workplace and how we lead our teams, how we fulfill our potential as leaders, but also how we support and help our people fulfill their potential as well. So we're going to unpack all that and have a nice conversation today. As we get started, I wanted to share Silke's bio with everybody. Silke Glaab is a performance and well-being advisor and executive coach. In the last 10 years, she has coached and trained high-performing executives and entrepreneurs around the globe to resolve the mysterious mental challenges of burnout, motivation, and resilience. She works with leaders who need support in a business role or role transition and energy boost or a revitalization of energies or a new outlook on life and work. Her unique Brain Boss method crystallizes 5 core elements of human potential. She trains practical skills and unpacks and fine-tunes mental models to produce the outcome you want. And I could go on and on and on about your bio, but what a tremendous background. You do some really important work. Anything else you would like to share with listeners by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in further?
Yeah, very quickly. So for my profession, I'm actually a psychologist. I have a master's degree in psychology. And then I picked up all kinds of coaching credentials, neuro-linguistic programming, clinical hypnotherapy, systemic work. You also had someone who did rapid transformational therapy. I also have I attended a course in this, behavior analysis, all kinds of things, applied neuroscience to really offer something for the 5 core agility points of human potential. Because in the end, what you also said, it's a more holistic approach. And everybody is different. The situation someone is in is also different. And therefore, all these different credentials to help really people at their best.
Wonderful. Thank you for that additional professional background. Clearly, you are very qualified, have a lot of credentials and a lot of skills in this area. So now let's go ahead and unpack the 5 core elements of human potential, and we can start to dissect that and really dig into each of those. Can you lay those out for us? And then we can start moving into each one.
So the 5 elements are agility points, and the first one is neurological agility. Then we have emotional agility, mental agility, social agility, and spiritual agility. So these are the 5 core ones. Do you want me to start with the first one?
Yeah, let's go ahead and dive right on into the first one. And I appreciate you framing it in terms of agility. I think that's also a very helpful way of understanding potential and growth and development.
Yeah. So our anything what we are doing, feeling, acting out is all directed by the brain. So if your brain, if your neurons are not really up to the task, then it's very difficult to be at your best. And in this core element, it's really important to look at sleep, your sleep pattern. It looks also how you deal with stress in general. Then also, how do you energize yourself? How do you structure your day to be really at your best? You're not able to work 8 hours non-stop. I believe, John, with all your academic background, you have worked for hours. But from own experiences, at a certain point, there's not much of productivity coming out of that.
And
So
I completely agree, by the way. This is actually a comment and a question I get fairly often. I tend to be a pretty organized and productive person. And so I strictly hold to the idea that, I'm not going to just burn the candle at both ends. I'm not going to work endless hours. And I want to devote time to my family. I want to devote time to help, plenty of sleep and recreation. And so I just try to, the times when I'm working, I try to focus and be very productive in those chunks of time. And then I try to have a balanced, integrated, work life. And that's worked pretty well for me. I completely agree that, working, the average person really can't focus for more than 3 or 4 hours a day tops anyways. And so working 10, 12 plus hour days isn't really going to be very fruitful for most people.
yeah, and this is, by the way, something I do with most of my clients in 1 or 2 sessions, just to look at their whole day. How do they outline their day? I have, for example, someone who works for a consultancy firm. This means taking work also home. She is a single mother. She has 2 kids, so she also has to help the kids. And therefore, it's even more important that even during the work time, the consultancy firm, that she structures really per day, targeting her main things, and also have some breaks in between, because there was a time she had one meeting after the other, and in the end she didn't know what she even discussed with one person, and she felt totally exhausted. And also to look what you can like let go of, like for example, some people, they don't take enough good nutrition because there's no time to cook, and then all these people are really earning very, very well. And then I said, so to be very productive and to have a really good lifestyle, you need to get either a cook, someone who comes in, who cooks like on 2 days, cooks for the week, cooks even for the family. And this was for some people really a game changer. They never thought about such an idea. They said, yeah, it doesn't need that you are starving yourself, because most of them are actually starving themselves. And there are catering services. Yeah, if you're a single person, yeah, like so small things. And with sleep, it's also very easy to say, yeah, you have to sleep, but sometimes there are some things that hinder you to sleep. This can be stress levels, this can be hormonal changes, and therefore it's even important, if your sleep hygiene is already set. Yeah, there are certain things: cold room, fully dark. You should go to bed before 11. You should not expose yourself to light after 10 p.m. too much. If everything is right and it's still not working, then I always recommend to really go to a medical doctor and see what's the underlying issue of that. Yeah, because
Yeah.
without sleep, you can't function. And this is one of the major things I really highly recommend. I also use tapping. There is a method called EFT. And for some people, it really helps. Yeah, it's like a ritual. It's like You stimulate the brain on certain points and give affirmations, and you regulate your system down. For some people, it really works. For some, not. So therefore, I say you really have to weigh everything. Yeah, that's for
Yeah.
me really the basic. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, and that is very, very important. And really, the healthy sleep patterns, the diet and the food that you take into your body, the exercise, all of those things really feed into many of these 5 areas, perhaps all 5 of the core
Yeah.
elements of human potential. Let's go ahead and break further down each
Yeah.
of the 5
Yes.
individually, starting with the
Okay.
first.
Let's go now to emotional agility. And this is where everything becomes really very interesting, because we don't think, when we are in business or in management, we don't think about emotions. But as you know, neuroscience has really studied that with every decision we do, we need emotions. There has to be like an emotional arousal in our body. And an emotion is a body sensation in our body. And then a feeling is more like on a higher region of the brain, in the insula. We interpret whatever we are feeling in our body, and this interpretation is called a feeling. And it's very important that we learn how to label what is going on in our body very well, because this defines how we are acting afterwards. So if we are labeled as something as very fearful, and we are fearful about it, then we can only take certain actions, because the brain is predicting what will come next when we have already something established. So if we believe it's fear and we label it fear, there's a certain program we are running. If we define it as excitement, yeah, it's the same, similar arousal in the body, but I define it as excitement, then I will have another repertoire of actions that I can follow on. The same is with intuition. Is it an impulse I'm following? Because for example, I fear or I worry that when I do a certain decision, I would regret it, or I'm very uncertain about it. And then I act more out of an impulse and not intuitively. And intuitively means based on my experiences. And this is then more like the executive functioning of the brain, where I access previous things, how I dealt with them, and then how I would predict based on certain information. But if I act out of an impulse, then I may use the wrong emotions in my decision making. So this is all the whole field of emotions. And I also go with some clients deeper to look why I'm reacting in a certain way in specific situations. And then we go even back in time into childhood and see when a certain feeling pattern or emotional pattern was created, and then heal it and go back to the same scene as an adult. Yeah, so in
Yeah.
this emotional work, we work like what's going on now. That's more on the neuroscience way and coaching way. But sometimes with some clients, it's also important to go back in time and see the root source of that.
I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, Bluer Than Indigo Leadership: The Journey of Becoming a Truly Remarkable Leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There's no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of our problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer than indigo leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations.
And we all have our own emotional baggage, don't we? And we have coping mechanisms and patterns that we've established over time, some of them healthy, a lot of them not so healthy. And so going through that process of really trying to understand where we're coming from, why we're feeling what we're feeling, how we're processing it, that's all very important. And as you mentioned, the emotional agility is a key component. It's one of those 5 core elements. How about the social and the spiritual agility?
Yeah, so the social agility means how do I interact in social settings? And in this, what I also often realize that people I'm interacting in a workplace can be also representative for people of my past. Yeah, for example, I had people, they always had problems with their boss or the CEO or whatever higher position. And when we digged a little bit deeper, then we realized, okay, this person is actually representing a parent. Yeah. And then I'm somehow stuck in my old patterns that I had when I was a younger person at that time. What also social interaction means that you are also able to really reflect what is going on. When there is a conflict, we tend to find on a surface level to solve the problem immediately. And we don't go under the surface what kind of emotional load is underlying there. And people are not really expressing what the real problem is, and therefore often a conflict can't be solved. So this comes, we are going into the area of vulnerability. And for me, vulnerability means to really express what I'm feeling. It's in a certain context, I could say, in fact, I don't feel comfortable with that. In fact, I feel very uncertain. I feel not seen. I feel that my arguments are not seen. So what I'm expressing is I. Yeah. And with this I reflect what I'm feeling in that, or what I'm sensing in this very moment. And when I open up to this, the whole conversation can go into a totally different direction.
Yeah, excellent. I love it. How about spiritual?
Spiritual is in this context to really see what is your life's mission. And this is for me then more the spiritual level. Often in companies, they have their mission and vision, and often it's mixed up. But the mission is to follow your core values. For what are you standing for? What part of the world are you representing? What part of the world you want to create an impact in? And if this becomes really clear for you, what your life's purpose, what your highest meaning in life is, then you can align everything else under it. Then you can say, okay, if I'm part of a world, for example, in my case, it's wise counsel. This is my mission, it's my philosophy And if I have this, then I can say, okay, if this is my mission, what could be a vision? Where could I act out my mission? I could work what I did even before in the educational sector. I could be a psychotherapist. I could be a mentor. There are different options, different visions, how I can live my mission. And then I can also structure very easily what are my values, what are my core beliefs when I have this mission, what kind of skills would I need for this, and how would I act? What is then actions that are objective and that can be measured, and what is the best environment for me? That's a typical alignment exercise from NLP, but it's very, very powerful. The moment you have found your mission and align everything under it, and then you walk up your way, I always say, then people are coming out of that really, how can you say, really content. They know what it means, and they can change environment, they can change the vision, and then create a new alignment to that.
Yeah, I love it. So those five core elements, all these different forms of agility, you've explained those so well and laid those out for us. So as I mentioned in the introduction, clearly this applies to me as an individual, you as an individual, all of us as we interact with our families, friends, communities, etc. But it also certainly applies to how we interact with others in the workplace. And I'm a believer that one of the core roles of a leader is to help their people fulfill their potential. So if as a leader, that's one of my goals, is to fulfill my own potential and help those around me to fulfill their potential, to have a dynamic team where everyone feels empowered to become their best, full, authentic self. How do I then as a leader help to model these five elements in how I live, how I work, and also how do I support my people in developing these different forms of agility as well?
That's a very, very good question. So in the first place, how you model it's really what a lot of people are saying. You always lead from within. If you are aligned, if you are able to regulate your emotions, because what you represent will be also picked up by the people in your team. I had, for example, once a boss, his health was not the very best. He was very narcissistic. He really didn't involve anybody from the team. He was the big player. If you didn't go along with him, you were blamed. And this created a very toxic environment. Compared to someone who is really in line with himself, who knows how he or she is feeling, know how to regulate it, know what her or his meaning is, then this will be very visible in the whole environment you create. How you can install that in your employees is to really figure out what their mission is, what are they aiming for, what are their strengths. This is always, I say, that's so important for a leader to figure out intuitively, to see, okay, someone is really good in this and this, and there are also tests someone can use to provide for employees to really find out their core strength, and then to see how the workplace or the task can be aligned to the core strength of someone. So sometimes people are not using their core strengths and then apply other things, and then productivity is good but could be better if it would be more aligned what they're really aiming for. And to find also in career development or personal development, to find out what really their core mission is. Yeah, and then you can also align this person accordingly. For me, these are the two core elements when it comes to coaching people in your team.
Yeah,
Finding
thank you.
the core strengths and support.
Yeah, and coming back to what you said just a minute ago, modeling first from leading from within. This means a variety of things, right? This means that I need to model healthy work-life balance, work-life integration, that I need to take my physical and mental health seriously, and that I need to be vulnerable enough with my people to let them see, that it's something that I'm prioritizing, in that sometimes, I may not be on my A game, and that's okay. That I need support sometimes, just like I'm going to try to support them. You create a psychologically safe environment, an environment where everyone knows that they can truly bring their whole self to work, and that they're going to be supported in that. That then creates this context in which we can start to really better understand our own, really how we function within these different 5 areas of agility, and we can understand better where perhaps we might be lacking, and perhaps where we might be able to grow and develop, and really lean into our full potential and our full authentic self. So I think all of that is super fascinating, super important. It's easier said than done, though, because it requires vulnerability. It requires continuous self-reflection and introspection, and it requires the development of meaningful, mutual and authentic relationships of mutual accountability and trust, right? That I need to know my people well enough that they see me when I'm vulnerable, that I can see that they can have permission to be vulnerable, and that they trust me, to not try to utilize their vulnerability for my gain, right?
Yes. Yes, and I fully agree with you. And you see, in the last years, management positions have been really reduced. So nowadays, if you're a leader, you have much more responsibilities, and the stake of your work is higher than ever before. And therefore, I think it's a totally new game on leadership right now, and it requires more human capital for what you say. You as a human being really have not need to, but it would be important if you really reach your whole human potential, and that you go through that first on your own, so that you can enable others. And new generations are much more vulnerable, so they're not going through the high stake like our generation or the millennials. They're much more emotional, open. They really want to have a work-life balance. And some consultancy firms like PricewaterhouseCoopers, they implemented a concept: work well, think well. What was it? Think well, feel well, work well. Where even team leaders, what you mentioned before, they have to be a role model. They have to go for a lunch break. Yeah, if they're not going for lunch break, the other won't also go for it. And they do like certain goals per week on what kind of area you want to focus on for your emotional and mental well-being, and it's shared in the whole group. And of course, it's not working in every team, but in teams where the leader is open, it works very well, and it has really consequences on performance and well-being.
Yeah, it does. Well, Silke, it has just been a real pleasure talking with you. I know at the time I need to let you go here in just a moment, but before we close, I wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you and find out more about your work, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Great. Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn under my profile, Silke Glaab. I post a lot. It's a very comprehensive profile. And then over my website, brainbossmethod.com. And there you can go through it, and you can also book a free consultation session to really feel and see if this method is the right one for your current situation. And what I wanted to say is there's a reason why I call it the brain boss method, because everything what you're doing is in your brain, and become a boss of your brain. And this includes everything what we discussed today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out to get connected, find out more about what Silke and her team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership. Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life.
Check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.